I was supposed to come half yard at work this week. I got you. I got you.
How are you doing?
Good.
Good?
I know, I am. Seeing Dr. Bedell's eyes,
There
you know. That's right. How are you?
Back over here.
How are you? Glad to see you.
All right, y'all, let's start moving inside.
Absolutely. Good. I like that color.
Hey, I'm trying. It's a good day for it. Nothing wrong with fighting gun violence. We're down to one. So
Yeah. This is Nicole and Alex. They live here. Nice to meet you. Nicole, it's nice to meet you. And this is Morgan, who also lives here. Can you say hello, Morgan? You shake hands? There you go. Good job.
All right.
Let's head in. All right.
The housing crisis impacts most people in Kansas City. How has the housing crisis impacted your life or the lives of people close to you?
Oh man, it was every day. So when I was born, I don't remember from when I was born, but we stayed off of 52nd and Bell Fountain in a real raggedy spot. But we had a lot of family in there because my grandfather came back to town for a minute, so he was there, other family members were. These are just stories I've heard from my mother, but the landlords were not necessarily friendly people. And I remember when I was young getting to know about the landlord and the landlady and seeing them as these kind of evil folks. But anyway, then we moved a lot. We were homeless different times, staying in motels, nursing homes, other people's houses. And that was kind of that. And that basically continued through the time I graduated from high school. College and law school, I was fine, right? I came back to Kansas City. I've lived in the same building since I got back, 19th and Paseo, which is mixed income. But the interesting thing is, so it's a building, a bunch of one-bedroom apartments. I see a whole bunch of people that have 3 or 4 kids in there, that sort of thing. And the saddest part, of course, is that you see people moving all the time, too. You know, and people always ask me, like, well, do they move at the end of the semester school? I'm like, no, people are just leaving whenever. And, of course, I've seen the posting on different doors of, you know, the eviction notices, all that sort of stuff. You know, I guess you see, the interesting thing about all these chats is, y'all make my mama so mad because she does not like me sharing all her stuff. But, you know, we were evicted lots of times. I mean, and it's demoralizing. I mean, how does it still affect me? Other than talking to and being around the people that I see today, it still affects my family. So my sister's got 6 kids. She's now divorced. Husband doesn't really take care of anything. So, I mean, she's always trying to find different homes and spots, particularly for her older kids. When the older kids started getting in fights with the stepfather and all of that, I mean, life continues despite whatever. And then my other sister lives out in East KC off Blue Ridge. And she's able to have a house that's very humble, but trying to fix it up, doesn't have money to fix it up. And so, you know, that's how we're seeing it now. And I know that, and then I forget my aforementioned mother, who stays in Parade Park. And the problem is they're not really keeping it up at all. So, I mean, she's had like a broken toilet for probably 3 or 4 months. Which makes me sound like a bad son, because like, why don't you fix it? But, you know, we keep trying to talk to the management. They're like, oh, it's not our fault. So I went in there the other day, I'm like, well, it's the seat off and all of that. And that's just how it is. You got stuff crumbling, you've got other units that are coming run down, so that's how we know.
And Mayor Sly James' term in office, 75,102 people were evicted. Nearly 9,000 a year, 42 a day. And of course, evictions are just the tip of the iceberg. Thousands live homeless and with horrible housing conditions or are constantly on the brink. We can't wait for another 75,000 people to go through what I am going through. With that in mind, what is your 100-day plan to take systemic action on the housing crisis in Kansas City immediately after you were elected?
Yeah, first of all, you don't need to be ashamed at all, right? I mean, I think I'm glad that you mentioned the 75,000 number. So many people like, when growing up, like everybody I knew, right, had been touched by the housing crisis, and I think everybody continues to be. Whether you're going through eviction or not right now, touching every neighborhood of our city, right, every school district. In terms of the first 100 days, not only am I interested in passing ordinances, but we need to find money, right? And we need to find money with the same fervor that we're finding money for things like bike lanes, garages, park improvements. Right. I mean, what we need is kind of a mix of two things, money and passion. If you have passion, the money starts to take care of itself. And too often at City Hall, we haven't had the passion to make dramatic, substantial change. For example, for the last 4 years, y'all probably could turn on the news any day and people are talking about an airport. I'm like, I don't care about an airport. I really don't at my core, right? Because it's like, okay, it'll be good, it'll be bad, whatever, but if we still have folks that are dealing with all of this, then how is this a better city? So my first 100 days is actually directing the city manager, right, to find our source of funds and not just them saying, hey, we don't have it, right? Figuring out how we can actually start funding some of these priority areas that we had said and making sure that we're actually finally, right, finishing substantial housing policy, including our tenants' bill of rights issues. And that's something, the first 100 days will be done, what is it, October 31st or November 1st? So I'd like to have it done by then. And the best thing about that, by the way, I want y'all all to know, city budget cycle. We always get our budget, right, late February, and, and then we vote on it like a month later. And so what we need to make sure is that you know that we need to put this housing, these priorities, in the budget before. So really, by the fall, we need to be on top of what is it we need, what concretely do we want to fund. Not let some councilman, I'll throw shade on myself, don't let us just do a whole bunch of resolutions. Our resolutions like resolved, we want everybody to be happy. We do that every week. Don't do it. Make sure that you're saying, all right, so where is the budget priority? Because our next meeting should be, after if I'm elected and all of that, should be, all right, Lucas, no, really, where's it coming from? Like right now, I don't want ideas, I don't want anything else. I want to know that the city managers identified our source of funds and we're going with it.
Thank you.
You have said before that you think sending more lawyers to eviction court will solve issues of tenant exploitation and mistreatment. We don't feel that this is enough. You have already committed to supporting a tenant bill of rights written with KC tenants. Will you further commit to ensuring that the Bill of Rights includes just cause eviction requirements, protection from retaliation, gives tenants the right to first refusal, and will you make sure that it is funded so that we can see real enforcement and accountability?
So I'll start from the back. Yeah, so happy to ensure it's funded. I mean, politics is a story sometimes of fighting about money, and we actually just had a debate about that down at Unity Temple, right, where everybody can find, and you know what, they're gonna get mad at me, but I'm gonna say it again. Right, we're having a conversation about $400 million on bike lanes, and I was getting insulted for trying to say, let's do $75 million for housing. I mean, that's off to me, dramatically, right, because I don't think 75 is enough. And then in an earlier debate, I had an opponent who was telling me like, oh, well, will you ever find this money? Right? I mean, it's there and we need to do more of it. So that's step one, yes to fund it. On point two, your list included right of first refusal, just cause, anti-retaliation, discrimination.
Yeah, protection from retaliation.
Right. I think I would say yes to all. Here's what we got to make sure we do on the anti-retaliation. That is actually something we have tried to pass, and I'd like to bring that up again at the ordinance level. We still allow discrimination for housing voucher recipients too, which I think is wholly unacceptable. I wrote an ordinance that tried to ban that, somehow it got changed on the floor throughout the process. That's something we need to go back and try to do again, because that's hitting a lot of people. Same thing with anti-retaliation. I think another thing that we need to do, because you're right, and maybe I said that more, lawyers and representation are always helpful, but I've never in any world, whether it be criminal justice, housing justice, anything, lawyers are not the only answer, right? Like, that's just not how the world works. The lawyer is there when the system's already broken.
And a lot of people don't have the luxury of getting a lawyer.
Almost no one has the luxury of getting a lawyer, right?
Yeah.
And so, you know, my view is, while expanded legal services are key, and funding more legal services are important, and something that I will always do. Because I do think it's important in the same way that if any of you get arrested for anything tomorrow, and it's a serious enough offense to be in county or state court, you'll have a lawyer standing next to you, right? And there are problems and necessities unless you have one. I think we should have the same thing in the world of housing, right? I think when you're looking at eviction docket, there is no reason we cannot fund people to be there for all of those, so that you actually at least get somebody who's speaking for you. And frankly, I know this from my own family's experience. My mother never fought a single one of those eviction suits. If y'all pull up her record now on Missouri CaseNet, you got a lot of stuff, right? Because she's like, oh well, I'm gonna lose anyway.
Yeah.
Even if there were, as we'd say in law, meritorious defenses. Like they didn't take care of it. In fact, the toilet was broken for it. Like they broke what's called, as you all know, right, the implied warranty of habitability for ages, which happens in lots of these. And so I think that's important, but you're asking in terms of creating ordinances that create more progressive housing policy and more protections. I absolutely will do that. And I will work hard to make sure we actually get them passed in connection with it too. I'll just say this in no reference. I know y'all got stuff. What I'm scared of is, and I know y'all will make sure this doesn't happen, this cannot be just an election issue, right? Y'all saw it took us like it was mixed of you plus us introducing stuff at the council level. It took us 3.5 years to get any substantive housing legislation really even before council. And I wrote like 80% of it myself personally. I can go get hit by a bus tomorrow, right? So what we need is to make sure that everybody's not just saying, hey, I care, you know, but is about like making that long-term substantive change. And I'll tell you where to look out for the challenges, because I think I've told y'all this story before. When I was trying to meet about it, somebody from the mayor's office before was saying, yeah, this isn't really our big issue right now. So our priority is going to be pre-K. I don't think the world of young children, but nevertheless,
We know that
I'm
was
like, you gotta, and the real way to like make sure kids are growing up is that they actually have stable homes.
Yeah. Can you commit to helping us create the tenant bill of rights within your first 100 days?
Oh, sure. Yeah, you know, look out for me. I might try to help you write some of it myself. Although, you know, I don't know if y'all trust my right? I always have, by telling them no, right? I mean, I've voted against their interests on a number of different occasions. They hated almost everything in our list of housing ordinances, many of which we have passed. And so I think the easiest way to do it is this. Yeah, you just you figure out where your candidates and where your folks are from. I mean, and I know there are people that can sell out and all that sort of stuff, and maybe you'll be like, hey, let's look to sell out in a fair challenge. You know, I still got a mom, right, who lives in the middle of the city. I still got family that lives I still live, right, in a building with those sorts of issues. And look, I've never forgotten that they were for the grace of God go on. Because I've run into my life challenges sometimes too. I've been blessed that it isn't money related, but look, if you are particularly a person of color, although it affects a whole bunch of people, but living in this city and dealing with issues and all that sort of stuff, you don't forget it, and I won't. And so, I mean, what we need to do is, yeah, make sure we're still fighting for this. That's why I like policies, actually. Because the way we get seduced by developers is there's no policy at all, right? If they're just operating and like, well, this seems good, and 750 is cheaper than 1,400, and everybody's like, oh, okay, yeah, well, that sounds good. That's the way that things actually get done way too often when you haven't introduced policies and initiatives like that. Now, on the fundraising thing, I'd love to have public financing of campaigns, like more progressive cities like New York City has, and a number of others, that would actually get money, the incredible amount of money out of politics. This mayoral race, most of it not raised by me, but in terms of what the candidates have raised, plus outside groups, which is the other reason that, like, you can get us to stop accepting developer money tomorrow, but then look out for those outside groups, the ones that run off of racist ads. You know, there's going to be $3 million in this race before the end of it. $3 million. And so I think if we actually got to a more public financing model, we'd be in a much better place.
So will you commit to monthly meetings with KC tenants for transparency and open communication?
Sure. I mean, I want y'all to make your meeting open to other people though too. Is that okay?
What do you mean, like?
Meaning I don't have closed meetings.
Mm-hmm.
So the one thing I'm saying is, like, if I'm meeting with KC tenants, you got to let other people come in. That's it. I don't know who those other people are, But I'm just saying, that's my, because you don't want me doing closed meetings with developers, right? And so that's just the one thing I would ask from you too. Because transparency is perfect. If I, in fact, the final 6 days of the campaign, I hope we can run into each other. Because there'll be cameras following me around for something, you know. And I'll be mic'd up the whole time, and frankly, I think if we had public officials doing that more often, then maybe some of the stuff that happens wouldn't happen the same way.
Okay, we will be in contact with you.
Okay, you got my cell phone
setting
number.
up.
I give everybody my cell phone number, so.
To follow up with this and to see what these meetings would look like so that we can foster this relationship.
Yeah.
Thank you.
What are your thoughts on how to prioritize accessible and inclusive homes for all? And can you commit to enforcing the requirements for accessibility and inclusivity as part of our tenant bill of rights?
So short answer on the back one is yes, absolutely. In terms of what it is that we are, what we're going to do, we need to make sure we're actually requiring developers, really landlords, to be held accountable more often. You know, healthy homes is a step, but I think, yeah, the big thing that follows, why I think these pieces of legislation, to Bryn's question, take real thought and time, is because we need to have an enforcement mechanism with all of it. Because we passed, Kansas City, Missouri is a decent place. We've actually passed lots of things that say what people should be doing, but we don't enforce. We don't have a budget to help enforce. We don't take punitive action when we don't. We take punitive action when people don't pay their earnings tax. Right? We do all these sorts of things. So no, I absolutely would agree to that. And frankly, I mean, my big kind of dramatic plan, and I don't like new bureaucracies, but we need the housing department to really go back to being a housing department that is looking out for the best interest of regulation. Because by not having one, it's kind of a reactionary, let's spend our federal money, and otherwise, let's do code enforcement. And that's about it. And that's inconsistent, and all types of problems there too. And so, no, that's something that I will make a clear priority. I mean, I said this in a debate earlier, so you have me on the record lots of times. There are some mayors that dream of airports or stadiums, right? I'll be a mayor who does not want a single thing named after me. I just want people to have access to safe, quality, affordable housing in neighborhoods like the one I grew up in.
All right. Thank you very much.
Do you have any questions of us?
I got a lot of questions for you. Wouldn't be me if I didn't. You've already told me you're staying engaged after the election. All right. I guess, and you're all voting.
Of course.
Or if you can. Okay. So then, I mean, I guess the other thing I might ask is this. You know, the city does a lot, but there are a lot of other institutions that need to do things too. I'm not talking about going to DC. DC's a mess. I'm not even talking about going to Jeff City, because Jeff City's a mess. But I'm talking about the school district. I'm talking about our safety net hospitals. Are you all willing to go with me to places like Kansas City School District or our other school districts? Are you going to go with me to Truman Medical Center, like board meetings?
Yes.
Are you going to go with me to Board of Police Commissioners?
Yes.
What's relevant to what we're doing? Because to me, that's how we start to make sure this is all impactful. The thing I hate the most about government sometimes when people are like, well, that's not us. That's not our jurisdiction. I want this movement to be something that is in the minds of everyone, because housing touches everything. Correct? So that's, if you want me to do that, then we have a good relationship going forward. And I'll show you all the ordinances in advance. Rewrite them.